10 years ago, being good at something actually meant something. You were known for it, or you were known for not being. An excellent developer, a great writer, a strategic marketeer, a fair and incorruptible judge. People could tell the difference. People talked about it. You were either mediocre or exceptional. That gap wasn't just a reputation, it was your leverage. It defined your salary, your opportunities, your position in the market. Today, that gap barely exists. Today, people can call themselves experts in areas they barely understand. Almost anyone can build an app without being an engineer, author a book without being a writer, create solution designs without technical expertise. Not perfectly, but well enough and fast. And in today's world, good enough and fast is starting to win. We are entering a world where the gap between novice and expert is shrinking. Specialization is no longer a differentiator, and the spectrum of skills is flattening. In the past, becoming a strong professional took years of study, real-world experience forged through failures, experimentation, deep understanding, a spark, a sixth sense, a bit of a brilliant mind. Now, tools like ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot have changed the game. The distance between beginner and expert is shrinking. Skills that once set people apart now become baseline. Instead of a wide range, everyone's output starts clustering around competent. Some call this democratization, but let's also call it what it is, devaluation. If everyone can produce something good, then good stops being valuable. If everyone can do special things, then there is no special, only common. The market doesn't reward effort, it rewards scarcity, and AI is removing scarcity from more and more skills. So what happens next? Being good is no longer enough. Being great is harder to define, and most importantly, your skill is no longer your moat. As individuals, we rely on AI to extend our skills, to accomplish what we couldn't before, and to succeed faster. Companies promote and sponsor this behavior. They embed AI in workflows to enhance operations, accelerate decision-making, make production more efficient. And slowly, something subtle happens. We stop doing things ourselves. Not because we cannot, but because it's inefficient. Over time, inefficiency becomes inability, and inability becomes dependency. Companies are undergoing profound transformation to exploit AI at maximum scale. And one day, in the not so distant future, when companies are deeply dependent on AI, what happens if access to it is suddenly cut off? Not theoretically, practically. Could they still operate? This is where the real shift is happening. Not control, leverage. Because while everyone is becoming dependent on AI, only a few entities are building it. Companies like OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, Microsoft, they are not just providing tools, they are becoming infrastructure. And when something becomes infrastructure, it becomes very hard to replace. Now, let's address the difficult part. People say AI is not replacing jobs, it's augmenting humans. That's often true, at first. The pattern looks like this. Step 1, AI helps employees. Step 2, productivity increases. Step 3. Fewer employees are needed. This isn't theory. It's already happening. Take Amazon. Between late 2025 and early 2026, Amazon cut around 30,000 corporate jobs, the largest workforce reduction in its history. 14,000 jobs cut in late 2025, 16,000 more cut in January 2026. That's roughly 9–10% of its corporate workforce. At the same time, Amazon is investing billions into AI, especially through AWS and internal automation. And here is the key part. From CEO Andy Jassy, as we roll out more generative AI, we will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today. And it makes sense. From a business perspective, AI doesn't sleep, doesn't take sick leave, doesn't forget, scales instantly. It's not about evil company. It's about optimization. And optimization has a direction. Less cost, more output. So yes, there are failures. Yes, AI makes mistakes. And those failures make headlines. But quietly, many implementations are working. And they don't make headlines. And this is just digital work. The next phase, physical AI. Robotics, automation, systems that act in the real world. When that scales, the question is no longer which jobs are safe, but what role is left. Most discussions about AI stop at jobs, but jobs are just the surface. The real system underneath is the economy. Today, the system works like this. Humans work, humans earn, humans pay taxes, governments function. But what happens when humans don't work, or fewer humans are needed? Who pays the taxes? Do we tax companies more? AI usage, compute, automation? And if wealth is generated without human labor, who owns that wealth? Because historically, income came from labor. You worked, you earned. But in this new world, that relationship is changing. Income is increasingly tied not to what you do, but to what you own. Labor used to be the primary source of value. Now ownership of technology, platforms, compute, energy or capital is becoming the driver of income. That's a very different system. This is where things get even more complicated. If most people don't produce economically, don't generate income, don't own capital, infrastructure or technology, then how do they survive? We already have answers, not theoretical ones, real ones. In Finland, 2,000 people were given 560 euros per month. No conditions, no requirements to work, no penalties. If they earn more, just income. What happened? They didn't stop living, they didn't collapse into inactivity, they became less stressed, more stable, more secure about the future. But here is the key. They didn't significantly work more either. That was universal basic income, not payment for work, not reward for productivity, income for existing. And this isn't just a small-scale experiment. In Spain, a system called Ingresso Minimo Vital now supports over 2 million people across more than 800,000 households. Monthly payments can reach around 1,000 euros per household, depending on family size. It's not universal, it's not unconditional, but it guarantees a minimum level of income for those who don't have it. Which means something important. Income is no longer tied strictly to work, it's tied to need. And in the UK, millions rely on universal credit, a system that replaces multiple benefits with a single monthly payment. Again, not universal, not unconditional, but it does something critical. It decouples survival from stable full-time employment. Which means this transition has already started. And these are just free models. There's also redistribution. Governments already do this every day. They take wealth from one part of the economy through taxes and reallocate it across society. From high earners to lower earners, from profitable companies to public services, funding, healthcare, education, infrastructure. And then there are subsidies, not giving you money directly, but lowering what you need to pay. Housing support, energy price caps, food assistance. These systems already exist. But in a world where fewer people are needed to create value, they stop being support systems and become the system itself. And that changes everything, because now your ability to participate economically is no longer defined only by what you produce, but also by how the system includes you. So the question becomes, on what basis do people receive income? Is it because they work? Because they exist? Because stability requires it? For the first time, there's no clear answer. And there's another problem. Right now, most governments are funded by taxing human labor, income taxes, payroll taxes. A huge part of public revenue comes from people working. So, what happens when people stop working? If fewer people work, fewer people pay taxes, but governments still need to fund healthcare, infrastructure, energy, stability itself. So they look elsewhere. They start taxing companies, automation, AI systems, compute power, and some have gone even further. In 2017, Bill Gates suggested something radical. If a robot comes in to do the same job that a human used to do, that robot should be taxed at a similar level. The idea was simple. If automation replaces workers, then automation should replace the taxes those workers used to pay. The European Parliament even debated this. At one point, policymakers considered a form of robot tax to compensate for job displacement and lost tax revenue. Why? Because when a machine replaces a worker, the government doesn't just lose a job. It loses income tax, it loses payroll tax, it loses consumption tied to that salary. At scale, this isn't just a labor issue, it's a fiscal one. Entire tax systems are built on human work. But there's a problem. Capital is mobile. Companies don't just absorb pressure, they adapt, they move across borders, optimize their structure, increase prices, reduce access, faster than regulation can follow. So now you have a system where value is created by fewer, and fewer entities' income is distributed to more and more people, and the mechanism in between is controlled. And this is where leverage shifts. Because if your livelihood depends on a system, you don't negotiate with it, you depend on it. So the real question is not can we redistribute wealth, it's who controls the system that redistributes it. Because once participation is mediated, the system becomes the gatekeeper, not by force, but by structure. And over time, the entities that generate value, control infrastructure, distribute access, don't just participate in the economy, they define it. And that's the shift. Not power disappearing, power concentrating in different places, in different hands. And once power moves, so does leverage. And this is the shift. Not AI controlling humans, but humans losing negotiating power. We are moving from a world where you could trade your skills for independence to a world where skills are abundant but leverage is scarce. And maybe the real question is not will AI take our jobs, but what gives us value when skills are no longer rare. Because for the first time in history, we might need to redefine work, value, contribution, and even purpose. And we are not prepared for that. I'm Gianluca. I work in AI. I believe in its potential, but I also think we should be asking more questions. If the idea of a future shaped by AI makes you think, or if you are curious about the possible paths our world could take, subscribe to Possibly Possible. We explore what's likely, unlikely, and everything in between, from AI to society, technology, and the human experience. Join the conversation. Let's imagine what's possible together.